Canadian researcher Simon Lajeunesse found that most boys seek pornography by age 10, driven by a brain that is suddenly fascinated by sex. Now, users perceive internet porn as far more compelling than porn of the past. Why is that? Unending novelty. In this Australian experiment, it's not mere nudity, but novelty that gets arousal skyrocketing. Subjects watched 22 porn displays. See that spike? That's where the researchers switched to porn the guys hadn't seen before. What happened? Their erections and their brains fired up. This old mammalian program, the Coolidge effect, perceives each novel female on a guy's screen as a genetic opportunity. To keep a guy fertilizing the screen, his brain releases the go-get-it neurochemical dopamine for each novel mate or image. Eventually the ram will tire, but as long as the guy can keep clicking, he can keep going, and so will his dopamine. His brain becomes associated with this porn harem. Such behaviors that are associated with this are being alone, voyeurism, clicking, searching, multiple tabs, fast-forwarding, constant novelty, shock, and surprise. As one young guy once asked, are we the first generation to masturbate left-handed? Now, real sex, in contrast, is courtship, touching, being touched, smells, pheromones, emotional connection, interaction with a real person. Arousal addiction symptoms are easily mistaken for such things as ADHD, social anxiety, depression, concentration problems, performance anxiety, OCD, and a host of others. Now, healthcare providers often assume that these conditions are primary, perhaps the cause of addiction, but never really the result of an addiction. As a consequence, they often medicate these guys without really inquiring about if they have an internet addiction. So guys never realized that they could overcome these symptoms simply by changing their behavior. In this Dutch study, here's the title, they found that in fact, of all activities on the internet, porn has the most potential to become addictive. Here's why. This ancient program, the reward circuit, evolved to drive us towards natural rewards, such as sex, bonding, and food. As a consequence, extreme versions of natural rewards have a unique ability to capture us. For example, high-calorie foods or hot, novel babes give us extra dopamine. Too much dopamine, though, can override our natural satiation mechanisms. For example, give rats unlimited access to junk food, and almost all of them will binge to obesity. This is also why 4 out of 5 Americans are overweight and about half of those are obese. Second, they kick in a molecular switch called delta phos-B. I know it's a fancy word, but dopamine kicks in delta phos-B, and that starts to accumulate in the brain's reward circuit. Now, with excess chronic consumption of drugs or natural rewards, this buildup of delta phos-B starts to alter the brain and promotes a cycle of binging and craving. If the binging continues, the delta phos-B builds up and it can lead to brain changes seen in all addicts. So the dominoes are excess consumption, excess dopamine, delta phos-B, brain changes. One of the first changes is a numb pleasure response. It kicks in, and so everyday pleasures really don't satisfy a porn addict. At the same time, other physical changes in the brain make the brain hyperreactive to porn. Everything else in the porn user's life is sort of boring, but porn is super exciting. Finally, his willpower erodes as his frontal cortex changes. I can't emphasize this enough. All addictions share these same brain changes and the same molecular switch that kicks them in, delta phos-B. Now, scientists have used brain scans to measure these changes in drug addicts. Up here, these scans show a reduced pleasure response in drug addicts, These and several other changes have also been seen in gambling addicts, food addicts, very recently in video game addicts.
Scientific studies have shown that repeated viewing of pornography actually alters the way the brain works. Neuroscience has shown us that willpower is a function of the prefrontal lobes of the brain, and studies have shown that viewing porn over and over again actually reshapes those areas of the brain, having the effect of literally eroding our willpower and our moral compass. Neuroscientists call it hypofrontality, which is explained as a state in which there is decreased blood flow to the prefrontal lobes of the brain. Crucially, hypofrontality is observed in schizophrenia patients and is also observed in all manner of addictions. And using the term addict is apt here, as porn is highly addictive. And as with all addictions, over time, higher doses are needed to satisfy the addiction. The Porn Circuit, a book by Sam Black, explains what hypofrontality is for the porn viewer. And I quote, "Compulsiveness is a good descriptor of hypofrontality. Many porn users feel focused on getting to porn and masturbating, even when a big part of them is saying, 'Don't do this.' Even when negative consequences seem imminent, impulse control is too weak to battle the cravings." End quote. The porn-addicted brain has trouble thinking logically. When impulses and desires come from the midbrain, instead of being moderated, the brain feels these desires as compelling needs. The prefrontal region is supposed to be able to weigh consequences and situations and judiciously shut down cravings. But hypofrontality means the addict's ability to do this is impaired. In other words, repeated viewing of porn ensures that individuals are less able to control their desires and more likely to give in to carnal cravings, despite the fact that those actions may undermine their sexual health or put at risk relationships they are already engaged in. Pornography is not just an attack on the foundation of the loving relationship, but it is a way in which the enemies of the West can revel in the degradation, objectification, and humiliation of beautiful Western females. And this is something I will come back to later. It is important to remember that sex evolved to be a loving act, not an act of violence or degradation. Yet in pornography, sex is more often than not degrading and violent. Women are dragged around, sodomized and degraded in a way that would not make a female feel loved, but instead make her feel used and worthless. Often, more than just two people are involved in these acts, making these sex acts the very opposite of a loving embrace. The effect of this is for men to see women not as loving partners and sex not as a loving act, but to see women as objects to degrade and humiliate, and for sex to be violent and debased.
Call to action for everyone listening. Shut down the adult film industry until it is in compliance with all laws, just like any other workplace in California. There's nothing I haven't done in porn. Most of the movies are filmed in private locations where male porn directors are controlling the work environment on a mostly male set. Physical violence, such as hitting, choking, hair pulling, slapping, kicking, calling names, toilet whore, cunt, you know.
Just like these two people being mean to me. I can know it's acting, but subconsciously I don't. What is this motherfucker in my face? Get the out of my face now!
We're subjected to unsafe and hazardous workplace to include excessive drugs and alcohol. Here, let me tell you something. We stood around naked, smoking pot, snorting meth, snorting cocaine. You can go into the bathroom. Cocaine's right there.
I don't even want alcohol. I can't, it's much.
Okay.
Oh my god, this is so please, it's really hurting me.
And I was subjected to bodily fluids such as urine, feces, blood, seminal, and vaginal fluid. In fact, when I was in the middle of a hardcore act, what I stared at in the corner was a pile of used wipes.
I go to ATM. Oh. It's so much. It's so much. It hurts.
porn is not safe. No health education, no condoms or barrier protection, no support from the porn industry employers for employees, no protection offered by employers, no advocate to monitor the workplace equals no safety or health in the adult film industry. Porn also kills. 36 premature deaths that we know of from HIV, suicide, homicide, and drugs between 2007 and 2010. Over 100 straight and gay performers have died from AIDS. 70% of sexually transmitted infections in the porn industry occur in females. This is from the Los Angeles Public Department of Health. Chlamydia and gonorrhea prevalence among performers is 10 times higher than that of LA County. Significantly higher rates of infection in the general public, 20%. Furthermore, these disease rates and reinfections are likely to be underestimated as rectal and oral screening is not done routinely, and these anatomic sites are likely to be a reservoir for repeat infections. I'm calling on the governing powers that be, including Cal OSHA, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, and the entire state of California to enforce the current health and safety laws or shut down the adult film industry until it is in compliance with all laws, just like any other workplace in California.
But who is running the porn industry? Who is behind the pushing of this filth? Now, I'm not going to claim that all Jews are involved in this, nor am I going to claim that Jews are the only ones behind pornography. And it is clear that plenty of Europeans are also involved in the porn industry. I am sure there are also Jews who are opposed to this industry. However, bearing those caveats in mind, it is important to note that Jews do play a disproportionate role in the porn industry. The following is taken from an essay called Triple Xthnics, Jews in the American Porn Industry. And yes, I did pronounce that correctly. Xthnics is a play on the word ethnic and X-rated. This was written by one Dr. Nathan Abrams, perhaps the world's most renowned authority on the Jewish role in pornography, and it was published in the Jewish Quarterly. And I quote, "A story little told is that of Jews in Hollywood's seedier cousin, the adult film industry. Perhaps we'd prefer to pretend the triple Xthnics didn't exist, but there's no getting away from the fact that secular Jews have played, and still continue to play, a disproportionate role throughout the adult film industry in America. Jewish involvement in pornography has had a long history in the United States, as Jews have helped to transform a fringe subculture into what has become a primary constituent of Americana. These are the true blue Jews." End quote. Now, the part of that I have to focus on is the line, "Jews have helped to transform a fringe subculture into what has become a primary constituent of Americana." What a troubling statement. Why would anyone wish to embed such filth into the American lifestyle?
So let's start with, I think, Mike, maybe you're the best one for this. Maybe the background of Jews and the adult entertainment industry, either from the filmmaking perspective, management perspective, active perspective, viewing perspective. Sure.
You sure this isn't one you want to take? I have some thoughts on it.
Here.
Jews in the adult industry, there's a lot of them. It was pretty much founded by the adult industry, or I'm sorry, the Jews. The adult, I had a couple beers. The adult industry was pretty much founded by the Jews. Basically, in the early 1900s, the German Jewish immigrants came in. They gravitated towards the porn industry because it's like kind of the seedier cousin of the Hollywood industry, which had already been controlled by the Jews. So basically, back in the 1960s, 70s, it was founded by people like Danny Mamet and Danny Skura, and then later in the 80s, the godfather of the modern day porn industry. His name was Reuben Sterman. Who was actually an Orthodox Jew. He owned over 200 bookstores all around the country. He's actually my godfather, which is kind of weird. So back in the 80s, the only way you could get pornography was to go through someone like Reuben Sterman, and he controlled, all of his stores and all the stores that that he didn't own, they actually had to pay him a tax to carry his product, and he was the only place that you could get product from, peep shows from. And later, what the Jews did was they created the manufacturing side, which is the replication, the printing, because back in the day, if you wanted to make a VHS or a beta tape or whatever, you couldn't go down to Kinko's or any mainstream printer and be like, I want to print, Gang Bang My Mom #3 or something.
Yeah, no, you can.
I promised I would.
Yeah.
That works too. We haven't done that yet. But. So what they did was they created all of these companies that manufactured DVDs and VHS and beta and printing, and all the companies pretty much had to go through the Jews. Reuben Sterman, actually, eventually he died in prison. They tried to get him from obscenity back in the 80s, which was a big thing. And it actually still is. There is an obscenity arrest today. But he eventually died in prison because of tax evasion, because he didn't want to pay taxes. So that's, it happened.
Yeah, Jews and
money. Jews and money is the next time we talk. Next year.
Rabbi?
Buy your tickets today.
Do you want to weigh in? So let's follow that up with the relationship between the Jews who got involved in this industry because they couldn't get involved in mainstream Hollywood, and their relationship with non-Jews then who were in this industry. Was there a stigma? Because while they did control a variety, historically control a lot of this industry, was there a stigma about those who were actively, let's say, making the films about being Jewish in this movie? Was there a stigma within it? And was there a stigma from other Jews who were in the community? And where is that at today versus historically?
Let me just answer that question quick. Back in the 70s, the majority of the male porn performers were Jewish, and the majority of the female performers were Roman Catholic. And if you look at the names from like the classic porn stars, you got Ron Jeremy, which isn't really Jewish, but you have Herschel Savage.
Is that his real name or his porn name?
That's his porn name.
Herschel was his porn name? That's not the one I would pick.
But
That's the next question.
It's kind of funny because those guys came into the industry, and I actually asked a couple of them, because I asked Ron Jeremy, and I was like, why did you guys, decide to go into the porn industry? Like, what was it that drew you? And besides like the obvious, you're like, I got to fuck Roman Catholic chicks and fulfill every fan. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're okay. Okay. You'll know.
Fornicate with Roman Catholics and fulfill like every fantasy that every Jewish boy has ever had. So I think the Jewish performers, they've always been really prevalent in the industry, and even now Ron Jeremy is still like one of the most well-known performers. James Dean, Joanna Angel, Daphne Rosen, and there's a bunch of them. The business side is still controlled by Jews. You have Steve Hirsch, who runs Vivid. You have Steve Orenstein, who runs Wicked. You have me, who runs the biggest porn company in the world. Second biggest. All the business owners are pretty much Jewish, or have Jewish ties, or at some point worked for a Jew in the porn business and gave their start. So, I forgot what the question was, but I hope I answered it.
You did. Okay.
Yay!
No, but that's a huge debate right now in that community.
So with prominent Jewish figures and publications openly praising attacks on family-friendly culture and admitting to Jews playing a disproportionate role in the porn industry, let's take a brief look at some of those leading Jewish figures and their role in popularizing pornography and making it mainstream. And sadly, it is now mainstream, with the world porn industry now worth over $100 billion a year. Al Goldstein eagerly described his motivations for being in porn and I quote, "The only reason that Jews are in pornography is that we think that Christ sucks. Catholicism sucks. We don't believe in authoritarianism. Pornography thus becomes a way of defiling Christian culture and, as it penetrates to the very heart of the American mainstream, becomes more charged." Goldstein continued, "I believe in me. I'm God. F God. God is your need to believe in some super being. I am the super being. I am your God. Admit it." End quote.
Yet one more sequel to the serial of the Al Goldstein life. And I really want to point out how despicable and disgusting you are as a constituency. I give my very fucking best. When I eat pussy, when I lick asshole, I try to be a good hump. I try to give you the best writings and insight and insights into what makes Al Goldstein. Al Goldstein's a fucking legend. How many people legalize pornography? I mean, fucking Fishbein is coasting, and Ron Jeremy is coasting. I changed the law. My fucking arrest in Wichita, Kansas. I'm the one who's still convicted of showing pubic hair in 1971. Everyone else is carrion, is a parasite. I changed the fucking law. I mean, for that I can always get high regard and high esteem for being a flesh pioneer. But you who read the blogs, you have no fucking life. You're fucking losers. You know, if you had a life, you'd want to comment on my writing. You'd want to have an exchange of views. But all you want to do is put me down or say I'm whining. Asshole, you don't mean anything. You're reading me. I'm not reading you. Do you think I give a shit what you have to say? All you are is a coagulated turd stuck up the ass of a camel. You don't matter. You don't mean anything. Don't answer. Who gives a shit? I don't get paid that much. I just sold an article to fucking Hustler for $2,100. I make money from other magazines. If you morons cannot appreciate my poetic genius, my insights, my James Joycean approach to life, my respect for Henry Miller and hedonism, what the fuck is wrong with you? Read graffiti on the walls of the bathrooms that are on the IRT subway. I'm not going to work with training you anymore. I've done it. I've earned my money with the column, but I've never dealt with less intelligence, less insight than you. You fucking pieces of shit. You can't respond to me. You don't have the brains. You're catatonic. You've been lobotomized. I may give you one or two more opportunities, but when you bring up Trotsky and rub yourself in shit, remember, you're not putting me down. You're putting you down. You are wasting the opportunity to deal with a fucking genius, because the limits aren't mine. The limit is you. You're limited. You're empty. You're vacuous. You're pathetic. I fuck you. And I'm probably going to fuck your wife and your daughters.
Are you Jewish?
I'm not Jewish.
Oh, we can convert you. You can be the first T-girl rabbi.
There's a big porn industry in Israel.
Really?
Comment on behalf of us.
We will have we will try to have the Prime Minister of Israel, okay, acknowledge that T-girls are the hottest, sexiest human beings on the planet, and he will have sex with
Black T-girls.
Yeah.
Jizz Jam number 11.
So I guess what do you work with Jews? What is your relationship with the Jewish people?
My best friend in middle school is Jewish. I went to his bar mitzvah. That's about it.
As Ali Sparks?
Oh, no, that was just as good old me.
Does he like T-girls? I mean, it's just not uncommon for Jewish men to like T-girls. In fact, 99%, I'm telling you, Jewish men, such as myself, love T-girls.
No, I think he's way too straight. He's more like
Netanyahu likes Netanyahu. You know Netanyahu?
No.
Prime Minister of Israel. I'm sorry, there is so many distractions.
Let's wrap it up.
Okay. I will. Yeah, I guess you want the producer want to wrap it up. I guess we have to wrap it up. So I mean, thank you so much for your time. We will come next time. We will talk to you. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it also good? Okay. Okay.
Much love.
Okay. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure.
Can the effects of excessive pornography and masturbation and all that sort of thing, can these things be reversed? Yes. But it's really hard. It's really hard. But yes, you can reverse these things. And you're going to have to go cold turkey. You're going to have to really even retrain your body. I mean, some of you guys who have been watching porn and masturbating 3, 4, 5 times a day since you were 13 years old, and then wondering why you can't perform with a woman, well, that's why you need to retrain your body. You've got to relearn things. And the only way you're going to get there is you're going to have to go cold turkey on that stuff and relearn how to have sex in a normal way. And I promise you, it'll be one of the hardest things you'll ever do in your life. That's why we've got to warn our kids. These idiots that are telling our young people that great sex can be had by masturbating and looking at porn and all that stuff, it is such a lie. It is destroying these young people's lives. It has the potential to wreck some of their sex lives forever. We need to warn our kids. There's a reason to stay away from this stuff. It is poisonous. It is destructive. It is not helpful. And those of you who are already into it and you want to get out of it, it's going to be a very difficult road for you. But yes, you can turn this around.